Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. This time it's not about Legion, it's actually about Nostalrius. Yes, it's finally time that has actually appeared in the news again. So, the last place that we left this was with Blizzard sending an invitation to the Nostalrius development team to basically go to Blizzard's campus and give a presentation and have a meeting. Well, that has since happened, and we now have the report from the Nostalrius team. So, Blizzard flew over the core Nostalrius team to their campus at Irvine. I believe they paid for all the expenses and stuff, which I suppose does make a lot of sense, and they had their meeting. Now, what's interesting is the meeting was scheduled to be 2 hours. Instead, it ended up being 5 hours, which I actually do think is a pretty good sign. Now, what interested me further is that the Blizzard staff at the meeting were, well, some pretty heavy hitters. We start off with Mike Morhaime, the CEO of the bloody company, the head honcho. We've got J. Allen Brack, executive producer for World of Warcraft, Tom Chilton, game director for World of Warcraft, Ian Hazzikostas, assistant game director for World of Warcraft, Marco Kogler, technical director for World of Warcraft, Saranen Smith, who is the global director for community development, Kester Robinson, manager for WoW community development, Vanessa Vannison, PR manager for World of Warcraft, and Randy Jordan, Blizzard community manager. That's Randy, who used to co-host the Instance podcast way back in the day. So then, that is, first of all, quite a few people. Second, a lot of people whose time is extremely valuable. Now, when I say their time is extremely valuable, they're generally, looking at the names, they're people who are going to be higher up the pay scale at Blizzard, but more importantly, they are people who are directly involved with managing the time of, if you think about it, probably, many thousands of dollars worth of work hours for all their different team members and their subordinates and the people who depend on them for leadership. So it is interesting that many high-end people at Blizzard gave that much of their time towards a meeting like this. I think that's actually quite a good that's quite a good indication, and indeed is a good indication that they even sent that many people, especially Mike Morhaime, the CEO of the company. That's somebody who, to book 5 hours off, dude would have had to have cancelled meetings, etc., etc., etc. Sure, it's a busy job. So, first of all, props to Blizzard for taking the whole thing a little bit seriously with the people that they send. That's absolutely something that's good to see. Now then, what did the Nostalrius team cover in this meeting? Well, they told us the project story, including the WoW emulation history, so that is basically giving Blizzard a run-over of things from their end as far as getting all of this up and off the ground. Community analysis through a survey that they did, and then Nostalrius data, so that's data from their actual server side. That's the sort of thing that for Blizzard, as much as a lot of people have been, sort of shit-talking the petition and a few things like that, at the end of the day, market validation is one of the most important aspects of business. It's something I'm quite heavily involved with in the minute, due to stuff I'm doing with my own games company. So yeah, market validation is really awesome, really, really awesome. And if a bunch of people hand you this crazy big petition and loads of actual player data, that is gold dust. That's really, really cool. So yeah, that's quite a big thing. Maybe something that's more important than people who are outside of game development would perhaps think. We move on to internal structure presentation. So basically, that is their internal structure as a team, technical details about their server architecture. Basically, they designed their own server tech to handle high population densities in particular areas. It's the kind of thing where if there's a bunch of people in an area, they'll probably spin up a server to deal with that load. So looking at their way of dealing with that. Of course, if you think of the original World of Warcraft, I'm sure it had tech that would have done that, but maybe it was different to what Nostalrius have done. Maybe it's the kind of thing where if Blizzard were doing it again, maybe they would get some useful pointers there. Who knows? And they had a presentation from their GM team for Nostalrius, technical insights to their anti-cheat system. So again, that's useful stuff. Maybe it was there in the vanilla WoW, maybe it wasn't. Then a quality report about the state of the project, including any bugs that they would have had remaining. Again, that's something that could be useful to Blizzard because, well, bug reports are generally quite useful to have. And then they did a Q&A. So, with all of that covered, what did the meeting actually, what did it do? What did it accomplish? Well, first of all, nothing concrete as is to be expected. Now, this is something that I think it's worth delving a little bit more into. Blizzard are a very big company. Now, I'm going to give you an example from the stuff that I'm doing at the minute. So, me and Thomas, my business partner, have been looking into doing some VR stuff. Our thinking is that with the current VR market, you can make some really awesome stuff in a way that, in terms of the amount of time that it takes to make that stuff, is pretty efficient, and maybe that is something that would be sustainable. So what did we do? We did a whole bunch of market research into Steam VR titles. We looked at their Steam owners, all of those things. We got as much information as we could, and then we were able to quite quickly come to a quick initial position and thought on the whole thing. Now, that, first of all, not an announcement from me, but anyway, for a company like Blizzard, it's not that simple, because all of those individual steps that the two of us did as individuals, well, we just did them, but in a company, that needs to go through multiple different layers of management and multiple different layers of, just checks and things like that. If you think about it, we're two directors of the company, we're spending our own money, we don't have shareholders. That's easy, but if you're Blizzard, you've got to deal with shareholders and loads of different other things. There's a lot more, so it's not like Mike, as the CEO of Blizzard, can say, you know what, that sounds like a sound decision, let's do it, and then tell the Nostalrius guys that it's a go-ahead, right? That isn't feasible for a large company. And one thing that I forgot to mention above, they did not ask the Nostalrius team to sign an NDA, so again, that's a pretty good, show of faith. Let's talk about the actual stuff that came out of the meeting according to the Nostalrius team. First of all, Blizzard have the source code because of version control, something that has been used in the software industry for a very long time. If you're not really sure what version control is, imagine I have a C# script, I've written a bunch of stuff in it, and that's fine, I save the file. I would then commit that to, say, as an example, my Git repository, and then the next day I could update some of the stuff in that script, and then I could commit that, and that is a new version that is pushed onto my Git repository. Now, in the future, when I'm looking back through my GitHub repository, I can, select code from different days, and basically it's all stored and it's all accessible, which is really awesome. So the bit that's more of a technical challenge, even though they do have the source code, is their build system. Basically, the whole thing is you only give the client the stuff it needs, and you only give the server the stuff it needs. That way, both are nice and efficient. So to facilitate this, all of the required data has to exist in one place for when both the client and server are being built. Not all of that was covered under version control. So while they have the source code for World of Warcraft, there is a lot of other stuff which they do not have and which pretty much has been lost. Probably someone is kicking themselves right now about that. Now, that lost data would have to be recreated, which would be a decently long development process. Certainly, I know that whenever I'm coding stuff, the fun thing to do is making a new system, or updating an old one. The terrible thing to do is going into something that's half broken and piecing it together again. That is always horrible. So, should this become a thing, I feel kind of bad for the engineers who will be going through that stuff. But basically, while the source code's there's a lot more to it. With a server architecture similar to what Blizzard is using, the scale there is something that I can't even comprehend, right? I don't do server stuff. I really should, though. But anyway, I don't do that stuff. But from what I understand of how their system works, stuff is very dynamic, very complex, etc., etc., etc. And there is definitely a difference from a server being put up by a bunch of hobbyists and then that being deployed through this massive big global network, like what Blizzard is actually running. And then on top of all of that, there are additional concerns over polish, because at the end of the day, this is a product coming from a AAA studio. There are some certain very high standards in terms of, first of all, the quality of what's delivered, but also stability and things like that. If vanilla World of Warcraft came back, it would have to probably be more stable than vanilla World of Warcraft would. Those standards are higher now. Ping would have to be better, etc., etc., etc. So there is significant work on the Blizzard end, and that's something that makes quite a bit of sense to me. Now, they did say that one of the Blizzard developers there, now note, the Nostalrius people said developers, and if we go to the list of people, that probably means either J. Allen Brack, Tom Chilton, Ian Hazakostas, or Marco Kogler, whatever, German surnames. I can't do them. But one of the very important people for World of Warcraft said, or expressed, that it should be playable in some way, even if it's only for the purposes of preservation. And the Nostalrius team think that the people that they met want legacy World of Warcraft servers to exist, and they expressed that the meeting was productive and successful. The Blizzard people also, according to the Nostalrius people, expressed a, quote, deep respect and admiration for what the team had done and the community that they had built on vanilla WoW. And Blizzard also expressed that they want to keep in touch. So, very interesting stuff overall. I did not expect an announcement, so I'm not disappointed. for me, the real information here is, first of all, some of the technical stuff that Blizzard said is interesting, but the gravity of the people that they actually invited to that meeting is rather significant, and the fact that that meeting wasn't really just a PR spin thing and that it lasted that amount of time, I think that really is pretty good stuff. Now, one angle that had been mentioned here, which I think I may have mentioned it, but it's not really something that I spent a lot of time on anyway, but that is the angle of preservation. So World of Warcraft is one of the defining games of the last decade, whether you like it, hate it, whatever, that's pretty much undeniable. So from a preservation, historical angle, I think it certainly is worth that game existing. Think about the game designer, maybe want to learn a lesson from the game that pretty much defined the genre that they're going to be working in. Well, it's very useful to have World of Warcraft there. Now, also, financial viability is an interesting topic. I think there's been a lot of great market validation done by the Nostalrius people. Definitely true that there'll be a slant in the data that they were able to harvest, but still, it's all good. It's all information, right, that can be used. Now, I think it's clear enough that if they were to do this, it would make money. Another example of that, RuneScape 2007. A lot of people are saying that kind of saved Jagex from, having serious problems. That was a runaway hit with their community. Now, while I don't have numbers to back this up whatsoever, I think it's pretty likely that if Legacy WoW was to come back, there would be enough people playing that to rival other MMOs in their entirety. It really is something that could, in my view, and given the events and numbers, etc. from the last few months, be quite a successful financial boon to Blizzard. So, look, we're probably in the state where the Blizzard people are thinking about it rather seriously. They definitely did commit quite a bit to it there. So, yeah, I would say watch this space. However, is Legion, are we going to find out anything before August, before Legion comes out? No, I definitely don't think so. They want everything to be focused on Legion, but maybe halfway through Legion, maybe at next BlizzCon, maybe something like that, we will get some form of announcement. Overall, it's tricky to know. Everything's up in the air with stuff like this, but I think we have got some very interesting signposts here, and at the end of the day, whether you want it or you don't want it, it shouldn't really affect you if it comes to pass or not. It just gives people more options. I doubt that if Legacy WoW was to come back, I doubt that would mean that Jay Allen Brack, Tom Chilton, Ian Hazacostas, etc. would all be jumping ship to Vanilla WoW and leaving the current game. Likely Vanilla WoW stuff would just be, upkeep by a skeleton crew. I think that's by far the most likely thing, and that content has already been developed, so the people who are responsible with developing content, the new stuff in the game, they wouldn't really have much of a place working at Vanilla WoW anyway. That's pretty much a job for a maintenance crew. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments or via Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.